Welcome to what is effectively the final session leading into drinks, which is a really important part of the day. So we're going to try and have a high energy session that brings together the thinking around the modern workplace and the tenant experience. I think what we're seeing and what I've heard in many of those earlier sessions is just the real passion that there is for actually driving change in that modern workplace. CBRE has done some recent work looking particularly at flexibility and what that means. So 45% of occupants across EMEA are saying that they see flexibility as key in their decision making by 2021. Then also the user experience, 92% see wellness as a key agenda. So I want to touch on wellness with our panel today. And then technology and data, we're better to be talking about that than future PropTech. And 42% see technology or technological disruption in the workplace as something that's going to be key in the future. To help me really start to look at those key questions around what is the modern workplace, I'm delighted to welcome on my panel. First of all, James Pellatt, who's a Director of Workplace Innovation at Great Portland Estates. He's on my left, your right. Sitting next to him, we've got Eugene Lee, who's the Chief Investment Officer for Knotel. And then, I put that the wrong way around. Nikko, sorry, apologies, Nikko. Yeah. Nikko Karjalainen, who's Executive Director of Corporate Strategy at Dubai Holdings. And then on the end, we have, indeed, Eugene Lee, Chief Investment Officer of Knotel. I'm going to ask the panel, first of all, to give us a little bit of background about their organisation, but particularly in relation to the key question, which is around what are you seeing as the major changes in that modern workplace? James, we're going to start with you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. So I'm Director of Workplace and Innovation at Great Portland Estates. We're a FTSE 250 real estate investment trust. We specialise purely on mostly office development and ownership in central London. We love our market, we specialise in it, and we think we can outperform. And without question, we are in probably the most exciting period of my career. I think it's just such a wonderfully exciting time that all of this choice and disruption and challenge allows us to really think and innovate and promote what we can do and how we can respond. And I think there's also quite a lot of nonsense spoken about the future and about what might happen. And I think we can focus too much too quickly on just flex, because I think it is part of an ecosystem that makes. And what we really want to look at is how can we create space that allows people to thrive? What is it that we put into those buildings that allows any organisation to grow, contract, and thrive? But really, what is the thing that's going to make people want to be in that space all day, every day, and connect with other people?
Nikko, coming to you, what are you seeing and feeling as that modern workplace trend?
Sure. So. Well, firstly, I work for a company called Tecom Group, which is the office and industrial asset arm of Dubai Holding. So we are Dubai's largest commercial office landlord. Tecom is a little bit of a different animal for a property company. So we have a dual mission. The first one is to be an asset developer and operator, so make money through real estate. But the second mission we have is to attract and grow strategic industry sectors in Dubai to grow and diversify the economy. So invest in industry sectors like media, technology, design, education, and so on. So we're more of an ecosystem builder than a pure property company. And for that reason we own, or Tecom Group owns, a range of unusual assets, 3 startup incubators, a media festival, and a design institute, and so on.
Brilliant.
Now, what I'm seeing happening in the real estate world is it really is an exciting stage in the industry. So, what I believe is happening is real estate is transforming, like many other businesses, financial services and transportation, for example, have already done, towards service-based business models. So value is flowing from hardware, to real estate hardware, to services. And that, of course, is a major challenge for traditional real estate operators who are used to building and operating boxes. So how do you create end user experiences that are attractive to the employees of your tenants? How do you create attractive tenant experiences? How do you facilitate interactions between your tenants? How do you bring in hospitality capabilities into your real estate portfolio and so on? So that change, I think, is at an early stage. It's enabled by technology and will continue, and will really challenge some of the more old-fashioned real estate operators.
Thank you. And Eugene, from you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Eugene. I'm the CIO and Global Head of Real Estate at Knotel. Knotel is the world's leading flexible office company. And so I was glad to hear on the panel before that flexibility is something that's important, and we'll spend a few minutes talking about it now. But we have 200 locations in 8 different cities around the world, managing around 3 million square feet. We've been in operation for a couple of years, and we plan to double or triple the portfolio probably in the next 12 to 18 months. We are growing the business in this way because we are seeing that demand for flexibility within the tenant community, the clients that we work with, far surpasses the supply that exists. And so that 3 million square feet that we have is immediately filled by companies that are looking for flexibility. And so the reasons for why that's the case are not particularly surprising. It doesn't matter if you're in real estate or any other industry. Companies of all sizes, large and small, are changing, and they're changing much more quickly than they used to. And so what Knotel really allows them to do is match up their real estate to match the changing nature of their business. And so if you're 500 people today, and in a couple of years from now you're 1,000 people, we allow you to match up your office with whatever your business looks like at the time. And so that flexibility is something that we have seen becoming increasingly important to these companies as they grow and shrink. Part of that flexibility also obviously requires us to provide a full service, and so full service for us is really everything associated with the office. We'll take care of the furniture, we'll turn on the lights and take care of the cleaning, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can just worry about managing the business. The last piece that I'll just touch on for a second is we work with large companies, and so Knotel is currently working with some of the largest occupiers and companies around the world. For companies like that, the feeling of the space being theirs is really important. And so when you walk into the spaces that these companies have with us, it looks like all of their other offices around the world. There is no Knotel signage. We are happy to be invisible and behind the scenes. And I think that's been a big part of our success. And so the trend that we see, which is, I guess, obvious at this point, is flexibility. Folks want flexibility in their offices. They want to be able to grow and shrink. They want to be able to choose the term for how long they stay in that office. And that's the core value of the service that we provide.
James, coming to you in terms of asset owners, how do they see themselves as basically owner or service provider? What's changing in the way that the thinking's really developing?
I think in order for us to respond to that change and shift in demand is to have a strategy that allows us to respond and plan for those eventualities. I think the demand for flex space is clear, it's there, it's real, we're accommodating it, but it is only part of the ecosystem of property that we provide and where we want to provide it. So we have a set of guiding principles that we've looked at. So we did some study to work out ourselves as to what does an occupier want from tomorrow, and we did take some of, your CBRE occupier survey is an excellent annual survey to look at, but it was asking sort of commercial real estate offices. It wasn't asking people who actually use offices what they want. So we decided to work with Harris, and we did some focus groups, and they were hugely revealing. We asked random people just to wonder what it is they want from an office building in 2030. And when you take that sort of insight and you bring it together with advice we get from our advisors, what we think we've done well, what we're working with our flex partners, is a set of guiding principles that allows us to consider that in each asset, and we will grow and expand and flex according to real estate cycles to meet those things and make them happen. But unless you plan for them to happen from the beginning, you'll never provide them. You can get too hung up on saying, well, how will we give this service and amenity to that occupier? We must have a planned strategy to do that point. When actually the real question is, what service and amenity can we provide? How's the best place that we can provide it for that asset in that location? And then respond accordingly. And by that flexible, responsive approach, by continuing to listen, we think that we'll continue to outperform because we're just giving space that occupiers want and change and adapt into.
Nikko, just coming to you then, around that the other change that we're really seeing is particularly now it's not just about the B2B, but it's actually the B2C. So what kind of trends are you seeing around sort of like that customer demand in workplace that you're actually capturing firsthand?
Yeah, we're clearly seeing almost like bifurcation of the workplace into how to put it, high value workers, and then maybe not so valued workers, in a sense that what many companies are struggling with, large traditional companies, they're struggling with attracting workforce talent, technology talent, that isn't naturally attractive to those companies. They're struggling with fostering creativity. They're struggling with enabling real productivity of workforce, not just in quantitative terms, but actually enabling people to do their best work. And that's why in some cases they turn to the asset owner as an enabler on how can we do these things. So what we as an asset owner need to think is the end user experience, the employees of our tenants. And that's quite a big mindset shift going into that consumer mindset. Designing spaces for wellness and so on. The other, on the B2B side, the other change or other big trend we are seeing is large companies, our tenants, are struggling to connect with innovative, younger, smaller companies. So providing real estate solutions and mechanisms for that is a key thing. So providing office spaces that have an element of flexibility, co-locating a startup incubator in an office building to enable large corporate tenants to interact with those innovative companies, and providing spaces for people to interact accidentally is another big differentiator. And we've been asked, of course some of this is our own initiative, but asked by large tenants to provide that kind of facilities and provide that kind of opportunities for interaction.
And Eugene, you talked about your portfolio, and clearly it's quite a big portfolio, and I get, kind of customers now demanding their own branding, but what other trends are really kind of coming through? And if you were looking maybe to the future more about the trends that we're going to see maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, what are those going to be? What are people going to be demanding from that flexible space?
Yeah, I mean, I think James and Nikko are describing something that's happening across the board where large owners and investors are starting to think about their clients, the tenants as their clients. And what are the different services and amenities and support that you want to give the companies that are in your spaces. And so I think that will run the gamut, and there are lots of different companies that will experiment with different things as the tenants worry more about workforce and talent attraction and things like that. So I think that's something that will continue to accelerate. What Knotel does by providing flexible office that's full service eliminates something that management teams often have to spend far more time on than they should. And so we think of that as kind of stripping out some major pain points for these companies, and so really allowing them to focus on their people and their culture and attracting the right folks to come work with them. And so I think that trend will continue to accelerate over time. We sometimes tell this story of, I'm not sure that anyone in the world wants to go back to the days that, you would stand in the street and wait for someone to drive by and happen to be free to be able to pick you up. That convenience of being able to hit a button and have a car show up to take you somewhere is obviously disruptive. And I think from our perspective, this trend of flexibility and thinking about the tenants as clients, which I think is a pretty real shift, will continue to accelerate.
And you see that sort of that trend around the flexible space. I think currently it's around 15% of the current office market in London that's actually offering that flexible space. What are you seeing those trends again in the future? What's the pace of that change that we're going to have?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I am smart enough to figure out where this stabilizes. I think what is obvious is that the largest companies in the world that have millions of square feet, that know far more about real estate than we do, have really quickly figured out that having some degree of flexibility in their portfolio is really important. And so for large owners like Great Portland and others, I think there is some very thoughtful work happening around what are the ways that you can better serve those companies by having an element of flexibility in that portfolio. So I think in 5 years from now, it'll be a lot more than it is today. I think that there will always be a need, and companies that have reached a certain size and scale and level of stability will want to have longer term arrangements as they do today. But I think they will increasingly figure out on the margin, and whatever that number is, I don't know, incorporating that into the ways that they think about their portfolios.
And James, what are you seeing? I mean, are you seeing those trends more and more? And what does that actually mean for real estate owners?
We're seeing both trends. So we have, in the past 3 years, leased to Facebook, Turner, KKR, all on terms of 15 or 20 years, and some without a break. So you've got like real solid commitment to that real estate for that time. And you could say, fine, we don't have to worry about anything because it's location and that's where you get to. But it's kind of, that would be naive, because the same trend that we see is creating space for occupiers that's easy to move into, easy to move out of, that's enabled. There's definitely demand for that. And I think it is
I love that 2-hour window that we heard in that earlier panel, because that's like, you know, if you can kind of move out and get into that flexible space, that's huge.
No, and so that's the point. So we will offer that moving service.
Yeah.
So that you can take someone to another place, because we're dealing with people at the point of maximum tension and friction. Anyone who does any domestic work at home, you know how stressful going through a change and moving houses, and that's bad enough. But when you're in a work situation and you've been given this job, find us a new office. You go, crikey, well, everyone's going to hate me now. And you're going through that point because you are the point of complaint and where you get to. So we have to adapt where the occupier is in that journey, and what's the stress point, and where's the strain. And real estate has been so abrasive. And I've spent a lot of time working out, why is it so combative? Why does it start from the lease negotiation and it's just hanging over from that point of view? Is it just a point of a lack of trust? And where we want to get to is just to that point of saying, look, we know that you want to move in here. You're putting your business continuity in our hands. We're a key risk for you. If we can't deliver the space that we said that we would give to you by that time, and that it works, and that by the time you move in, everything is working for you, and it's healthy, it's exciting, people want to be there, you've got to trust us to do that point. So delivering on your promises and making commitments that you honour is a really valuable part of that experience.
And Nikko, if we were looking at like more global trends, is there a variance in terms of what we're actually seeing maybe here in the UK versus trends in Middle East or you know, the US for that matter, in terms of, is there a different pace that's happening? Is there a different style of workplace? Or is it that actually the global corporate really wants that consistency?
I'd say that the trends are the same. So the trends that take place here in New York are also playing out in Dubai, but the pace is a little bit different. So in terms of flexible space, for example, yes, we hear from various experts and our own estimates that 20 to 30% of portfolios in the near term will be flexible space. And that's also happening in Dubai, but the market is at a much earlier stage. And the trend has been largely driven by small independent operators setting up co-working shops, and that's now moving into large corporate landlords developing their own flexible space offerings. So similar trend, but it's catching up. Other things like wellness, employee productivity, fostering creativity are, I think, exactly the same as here, but of course the solutions may be a little bit more local or localized.
And Eugene, perhaps coming to you, do you think that people are prepared to pay more for those technologically enhanced workspaces, or indeed those that are, really enhanced value workspaces? And can you give any sort of really good examples of either technology or enhanced workplace?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of our company is built on that belief that folks are willing to pay for that kind of service. In addition to the flexibility and everything else that we've talked about, we step into the role of managing the space for the clients that we have. And so what that means is when a window breaks in the space, they hit a button on our app, someone from Knotel shows up and repairs it. If there's some other issue with the space, it's something that we are able to seamlessly handle because we are now in the business of managing many different locations around many different spaces. The internet goes down, we show up and fix it. We won't put more paper in the printer, but hopefully over time there will be less and less of those. But there's a bundle of services that I think when companies think about kind of their landlord, and in certain instances you could think of Knotel as their landlord, their expectation for the value that they get is increasing beyond just the four walls. And so as we hear more and more from our clients, the things that they would like to see incorporated into that service, we're happy to add that in and layer that in as a technology solution. I think on the
Any examples of what those might be? What kind of things are clients saying, this is what we want, that maybe you wouldn't have seen 5 years ago?
Well, I guess the app is kind of the simplest thing. To be able to manage your space through your phone like people manage most of their lives now is a different reaction than when you have to go chase someone, in facilities to go repair something meaningful in your space. So that is a very simple interaction that we've changed. The ability to offer a flexible office also requires an element of speed. And so part of our technology is being able to reconfigure the spaces that we offer based on how your business is changing. And so the way to think about that is we will eventually become one of the largest buyers, if not manufacturers, of modular equipment, things that we think about as fit out. And the reason we will is because no one cares about reconfiguring a space as often as we do. And so you're changing the space every 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, and in order to be able to do that efficiently, we have to be able to shrink the size of a room from being a large conference room to too smaller because the clients that have come in after someone moved out necessitates that. And so some of the technology that we will invest in and are investing in is changing the actual physical nature of the space,
Sure.
along with that tech overlay of how they interact.
Okay. And Nikko, the same question to you. Again, that sort of that price point and what you're seeing change around technology into the workplace and actually people being prepared to pay for that enhanced space.
We're clearly seeing that there's a clear willingness to pay for better real estate solutions. Now, technology is an enabler. I don't think people or tenants will pay for technology. What they will pay for is space that meets their needs, and largely that has to do with flexibility, with customization, of course location, but it's really having that concept and frictionless transaction, frictionless tenancy that carries a premium. So to put it in really simple terms, flexible office space is in demand also in Dubai and carries a premium. But also increasingly, tenants that previously were happy with a shell and core type of offering with wires hanging from the ceiling are willing to pay extra for a fitted out office that meets their specifications.
And James, you're constantly looking at trends around the world. I know you are. What one trend have you been sort of seeing in workplace that really excites you about is going to be that big step change? Is there any one thing that really stands out?
I think the myth of the age difference in the workplace is sort of overplayed, and actually what most people want what we found is that if you give people choice and you support the choice, and you have a roof terrace to work on, or you have a free co-working space and reception, or coffee, all those things that we're providing, and we're providing in, in every building that we're putting in, actually just giving people freedom and flexibility and how you do your day-to-day. Because there are times when you want to collaborate, there are times when you want to focus, and there are times when you want to share. And to say one size fits all, and like the Harvard Business Report, that open plan office, that was just nonsense. That was just plain two companies looking at a survey, and it wasn't really thinking through how do people experiment during their day. They're not going to be at the workplace all day every day anyway. So what is it that's going to want to bring you there? And the focus groups that we did sort of highlighted this point. It was so helpful, and it was so surprising. The thing that was the sort of emerging trend that no one has really talked about, but we have the opportunity and we must do something about, is they wanted to work in a workplace that was helping to tackle climate change. And if we're going to deliver buildings or work towards net zero carbon buildings, then we must use technology to understand how it's used and adapt its use to make sure that we are meeting those targets, because it is more than critical that we do it. But I think it's going to be more than critical that when occupiers take those spaces, that they know that that's not going to happen. And it's not just a BREEAM rating that says this. It is actually we learn how the building uses, and we use less energy as a result. And
what's the role in data in that? So how can we use our data smarter, more effectively to inform those kind of decisions?
It's massive. It is everything in terms of how can you say that the energy consumption, if you're just measuring energy at a meter, you don't know if there's one person using it or 1,000 people using it. Unless you're measuring it against use, it's only one part of the piece. And so how we measure data and how you sell that space, I think the question of trust about how you're measured or monitored within a workplace is, and that message that we get across, the danger of data being mismanaged by unscrupulous management, that is a real fear. But if you're doing it to say, look, we're doing this to help benefit you for your health, we're monitoring your well-being, but we're also monitoring how much energy is being used and how it fits within a community, then people will see the benefit.
And Eugene, from your app that you're having, what's the power of the data, and how's that helping inform you in terms of the business decisions that you're making?
So we, I think, have somewhat unique visibility into how the spaces are used. And so because of the app and because of the ways that we're able to see people interact with the space, whether it's conference room bookings or other requests that come in, we have realized also that we're a real estate business that was founded and run by non-real estate people. And so what that really means is we have a different perspective. One of our founders is a serial founder, and the other is a very serious investor. And so they think about real estate a little bit differently, and we all think about it in the sense of, what would we want to be better? And so what we have learned is that we now work with hundreds of different companies, and so there's a lot of data that we get that's very just kind of peripheral and thinking about how do all of these different companies think about their spaces differently. And so is there some trend where smaller companies are growing more quickly than they used to? Because we hear about it when a company comes in and says, I have 5,000 square feet today, but I need 10,000 square feet. What are the things, do companies get to 20,000 and then kind of plateau out, and very few make that leap to the 50 and the 100,000 square feet spaces? And so we're starting to see things that are just kind of related to the activities of our client businesses. And that's one interesting insight that we've started to really focus on, in addition to kind of the use within the space. And so people swiping in and out of the floors that they have at Knotel is another kind of data point where internally, I think we're able to partner with owners and give them some level of visibility about how the floors and buildings are actually being used.
And we've seen, Nikko, sort of like, some trends, even with like people volunteering to be chipped. I say that, where you kind of see the chip kind of going into the bit in your hand. What kind of things are we going to see that's really going to change the way in which people interact with their workplace?
My answer is I'm coming to this from a slightly different angle, which is what I think will happen is we'll see technology enthusiasm going too far quite quickly. Whether people will be chipped or not, they'll be tracked and their habits will be tracked. And as we heard today, lots of data will be collected and will be used for all kinds of purposes that data shouldn't be used for. And employees will find that intrusive. There will be data leaks and there will be cybercrime and all kinds of things like that. That's almost bound to happen because when data offers the opportunity, management, HR departments, whoever is the decision maker will kind of go to find that sense. And then there'll be a bit more of a balanced way of using data to actually do things that make the workplace experience better. But as we heard today, it's often the small things that actually destroy productivity. So, for example, your Wi-Fi connection doesn't work, or you don't have access to your building, or the meeting room is booked, or someone is in the meeting room you're booked, or whatever it is. And data and technology can solve lots of those issues. And my advice would be to kind of start from there and be a little bit careful about how we use technology so we don't go overboard.
I'm going to throw it open to the floor. Are there any questions from the floor? Gentleman right at the front here and then one over there. Have we got some mics, please, or can you call your question out and I'll perhaps repeat it. Do you want to go first?
Do you see like standardization of kind of renting the office space coming same as you book like, you know, a meeting room? So let's say you have 5 types of offices, high floor, low floor, 20 square meters, the same way we book a hotel room. Do you see it coming or is it something that... Can I repeat or?
Yeah, you repeat. Go on, please.
So the question is, do you see standardization of renting office space coming same way as we book a hotel room or we book a car, you know, we rent a car? And what I mean with this, that we have 10 types of offices and you charge per square meter, per square feet, and you say it's high floor, low floor,
Sure.
all facilities included, Wi-Fi, all this kind of thing. So same way we book as well a meeting room.
James, do you want to take that one?
I don't know if I do, and if it did, I think it would be really quite sad. I think that creating a unique space is important to an organisation to express their brand. I think even from the Knotel point of view, your identity and how you want your space to be is personal to that organisation. And I think if there was that standard approach that's the same everywhere, it becomes a really dull place to work in because there's no sense of excitement, there's no sense of wonderment. It's the bits of volume or space or light or something else that gets your spirit flowing that you think is there.
Eugene, you were nodding there as well.
Yeah, I mean, our CEO has this line, we mass produce masterpieces. And the idea is that all of the spaces, all the clients that we have want their spaces to look and feel like theirs, right? They have different perspectives on how they work, they have different color schemes and design patterns and all those things, and we want to be there to help support them. And so one company might be office intensive, another might be open layout, and so on. And so the way that we think about it is we have to be able to provide the things that they want. We're not trying to take them and push them into a mold that we've created on our side. I think a lot of co-working ends up being a little bit like that because in terms of the economics of it, you build a lot of small boxes and you have to jam people into those boxes.
Sure.
In terms of the way that we provide space, it's very important to us that we are able to change it however they want us to.
Yeah, there was a question over the back there. Yeah, gentleman just here. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Marwan. I work for a company called Dodec. So working as a contractor, I've worked in most of your offices actually. I'm an iOS developer, so most of your clients needed my service at one point. I now work for a startup. We look to replace all kind of cards, essentially, that you use to enter and exit the building with an app on your phone. Going with everything you guys are saying, this is exactly what you need. What we're having the issue with is you guys are saying the right stuff, but when we approach you as a company, I feel that there's something lost in the enthusiasm of engaging with startups and engaging with new things. We constantly get the battle of, oh, we don't need that, we've got key cards, or we don't need this, or why are we
Sure.
replacing our thing? And I'm wondering, is this something that you guys are looking to tackle? Is there some way that this is kind of like our growth team? This is our thinking outside of the box team that we can... I'm not saying that I want an answer, but is this something that is
Nikko,
coming
I'm
up?
going to let you come in on that one. A real quick answer if you don't mind.
Now, the challenge is that large companies, large real estate companies, large companies in general, struggle with new ways of working. There's a natural corporate immunity system that rejects anything new and innovative. And you had to battle really hard internally to get through that immunity system. And unfortunately, often the first reaction is either it's not for us, or it's too complicated, or too scary, or whatever it is. And that's a really, really big challenge, especially in the property sector, to change that mindset. So we start thinking about the customer as a customer, the tenant experience as an experience, as opposed to just a lease, and find ways to work with more innovative companies, typically smaller startups that can help us do new things.
I'm going to ask you each very quickly. I want a one-word answer. In 5 years' time, we're sitting here. What will have changed in workplace? Eugene, come on. One word.
Mine is obviously flexibility,
Flexibility. More flexible.
more flexible.
Nikko, what will have changed?
I hope it's productivity. Productivity. Modern workplace is actually very, very bad for productivity.
And James?
Less consumption, less energy, more awareness of sustainability.
Brilliant. James, Nikko, Eugene, thank you very much.
Eugene?